This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
All right. Hey, welcome to the War Room / the SAB podcast. Today I have, all of my other co-creators with me today. Not everybody, but the majority, the ones that matter right now, I guess, because they showed up. Showing up's half the battle, right?
Showing up's half the battle.
It absolutely is. And what I really want to do today, first of all, thank you to all of you for sticking it out through the show. For 2 years we've been doing this show and growing with the show. I remember going probably back 2 years and 3 or 4 months with Fu when we were on whatever that show was, Entrepreneur on Fire or something. I don't know, NBC on Fire or something. And
Fire Up Connect.
Fire Up Connect. So I remember the very first one he did, and beforehand, how nervous he was to interview all of us. So if you rewind back all the way to that to now, I mean, I got to tell you, you're just another person. You're not even the same human being from then. And, but that's the great thing about getting to be a part of something like this. Because I was the same way. I'm sure if you go back to my first episode, it was horrible. Maybe not horrible, but really mechanical, And now it's just that sense of fun, really, more than anything else. And just being able to learn through other people's experiences. I mean, it really is actually, if you start to think about it, all the stories we get to hear.
So many.
That's a lot of stories. And it should actually be an honor that you get a chance to sit down with somebody like that and hear their story to begin with. Right. That's how I look at it anyway, because, and we all know we have those times where it's you got to pull information out of people but then you get those ones that are just your dream guest, right? And I've had lots of those. I mean, I think I just crossed 350 episodes, and it's just insane. The amount of great stories there are, so on and so forth. But I want to kick this whole thing off with just kind of talking about, well, who are some of your favorites that you got to interview in the last year? And I'll kick it off with, for me, hands down, Joe Foster. He was, I mean, that has got to be one of the most genuine human beings I've ever got to sit down and have a conversation with. And so candid about, all the struggles that Reebok had throughout its history with him and his brother and his father and his brother. And his mainstay rule was, because I just straight up asked him, I said, hey, what are 3 things that you think made you a success? And he said, well, it's pretty easy. You got to have fun, more fun, and it has to be an absolute hoot. That was his answer. I was like, man, I can get on board with that. I need to change my psyche around a little bit. And anyway, so just the candidness of that conversation was just so amazing to have with somebody that's launched a brand like that. And he just wants to get the real story out, because like all big brands, you have the story on the website and then the real story, right? And it was really cool, listening to the real story. And I think, Chris, you had the opportunity to interview him for Pivot too, right?
I did. You
Yeah.
stole my favorite interview.
Yeah, but you got to re-interview him. Oh, is that the one you were
Uh,
gonna say too?
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
Yep,
Well,
he was everything you said.
yeah, it was just an amazing episode for sure. But anyway, so that was my favorite episode in the last year. Shelby, how about you? I'm gonna turn the mic over to you.
Yeah, I have had quite a few. I don't have quite as many podcast episodes as you do, but I have spurts of them, and I just love having conversations. And you all know me well, and that if somebody could pay me to have a conversation, that's probably all I do. I just love talking to people, and I love telling stories, and I like listening to stories, and I like all of those things. Uh, I had a few that kind of surprised me this year, and actually, one was in the publishing group that I'm in, and one of the women that is in the publishing group, she's a ghostwriter, and Kathy Sparrow is her name, and she surprised me, and she talked about how her dream was to like open a fly fishing lodge in Montana and connect that to writing, and I thought that was such a I live in Montana, so it was such a fun image for me to have of her. I didn't really know a lot about her. She's a ghostwriter, and perhaps when I've been around ghostwriters, they tend to adopt the personalities. They don't talk about themselves that much, but they do talk about other people because they tell stories through the lens of, they tell other people's stories through their lens, and it's just fun to be able to discover that. So that surprised me. And so I enjoyed that conversation a lot, and then it ended up being a much bigger conversation. And those are the podcasts that are really fun when they start off as something and then they completely pivot and go somewhere else and you don't expect it. So the other one that sticks out to me this year is one of my clients who Julie and I work with, and Julie Ducharme and I work with, Kellyanne Jenkins. She's a lawyer, and she's got this incredible story about being a female lawyer and transitioning from being a lawyer into this other consulting industry that she wants to do too. And she's had a lot of challenges with that. And so we talked about that in the beginning of her interview. And then I asked her about one of her big challenges in this past year. And she said that this past year, one of her goals was to run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. And
Wow.
which is an incredible feat. I can't even imagine doing that. But I was like, how have I been working with you for this long and we don't know this story? Because it's such a fun part of her. I mean, she's got so many incredible stories. She's clearly an athlete and likes to do those things, but she told the story of running. It was literally in 24 hours. She said she ran in the Arctic and it was like 28 degrees below zero. And then she went to South Africa the next day and it was 84 degrees when she ran her marathon. So that's within 2 days of each other. And that's just such an incredible feat. And to hear her talk about it just as like, yeah, it was something that I did. And I mean, that's a huge thing to be prepared for and a huge thing to overcome. And just to learn about that was amazing. I'm excited to hear. I have not heard about, she just ran with some of the people from the group that she did the 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents with. She just met up in Arizona and ran in Antelope Canyon. If you're familiar with that area, I've been in it before. It's this beautiful slot canyon, and she did a 52 miler in there too. So yes, the business conversations were fun, but it's really, I love to be surprised, and I also love to hear stories of triumph like that. Those are pretty amazing. And so that's
That
my
makes me tired just even thinking about it.
just thinking
Right.
about that. Yeah, it's incredible. I'm excited to hear about her 52, her ultra marathon, which makes me just want to, I'm a very not a very good runner at all, and I don't really like it. But it's transformed her life, and it's really amazing to hear about those feats that you just think are impossible. So
Yeah.
that's probably my most memorable story from this year.
Aren't you a marathon runner, Michael? You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute.
Doesn't seem like it, but we can hear you.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Oh
There
yeah.
you are. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am not a marathon runner.
Oh,
I
I thought you were for some reason.
I don't like running. I'll swim.
Maybe that's just your
I'll walk.
physique.
I'll hike.
Must be your physique that
Could be. Could be.
that lends to that, I guess. You look like you'd be a runner.
Yeah.
You have
I
that.
ran a half marathon a year ago, about 9 months ago, and I did it. I didn't really like it, but it was beautiful. So
Yeah. Well, I did too when I was 30 and I hated it and I'll never do it again.
can you imagine though can you imagine doing, I mean, that's 26 miles a day in 7 days straight. It's just crazy to me.
It's a fine line between hard and stupid. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
She made it sound like it was pretty transformative. And then I think there's the group thing about that too, that being a part of a group. And I resonate with that, working with all you fine folks. It's really fun to be a part of a group and to meet those challenges together. And I think there's a lot of that in there too. And I think that's something that she was kind of missing in the lawyer world. So
that makes sense. Cool. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And how about you, Patricia? Let's move on to you.
Well, I guess they're all good in their own way. I love learning about so many different people. And one thing that's unique is that a lot of people, if they're interviewing someone, they're talking about themselves and what they do and how everybody should buy their product and whatnot. So when you talk to somebody who's really, it's not about them, it's how they're helping other people. So one of them, there was a gentleman I interviewed where he's a doctor, but he's developing something to try to help with like traumatic brain injury and things like that. I thought that was really, really unique. It's, he's trying to do something for other people. There were a couple that were like this. There was another couple who it was kind of unique. They were coming up with like when kids are in school and they're in college and they're into sports and whatnot, everybody just assumes, oh, they got a scholarship, they're totally taken care of. But she was explaining how the scholarships are not always for one person. Sometimes that scholarship is split between 4 or 5 people. And, so they don't have any money to go out and they don't have any money to do anything. So they just kind of, stick it out. So they were coming up with an app where if you have your favorite sports team or favorite person or favorite state, it was across the US, you can basically not so much sponsor them, so to speak, but maybe donate $50 a month or something like that to help them kind of go out to eat with other people and kind of network and just really give them that boost of confidence. I thought that was really cool. There were just so many people that just, a few of them were really, and then of course there was the one woman who, most of you know my situation, but her story kind of resonated with me a little bit. She came from another country with this, came from Africa, and she had this dream of being like the next Oprah Winfrey. And there's things that happen in your own country that you don't realize happens. And apparently she got arrested in California airport. They said she came here to be a prostitute. So here she is in a foreign country. She doesn't speak the language and whatnot. She spent 9 months in the airport prison trying to, find her way out of here. And she finally got it, and it's kind of like when you hear this stuff, it's like, I just learned so much from everybody. I'm like, and now she's become a spokesperson to try to educate other people, not only about how to follow your dreams, but what to look out for. So many interesting people, but I learned so much just talking to everybody. But I love the ones that have a story, not so much about saying, I'm great, here's who I am, here's what I do, and buy from me. It's more about what can I do to help other people. So it's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, that's the amazing part of the, being a part of this. And I think I've I've probably got more out of this than they get out of it, right? When it comes to just immersing in other people's stories, I think help, I mean, I think they help you be a better person in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I just
Not,
learned so much.
yeah, not that anybody here is like a dirtbag or anything, but I'm just saying that I think, at the end of the day, when we're able to hear other people's stories or trials and tribulations, I think it sometimes makes us step back and go, wow, I never had to go through that. That's pretty amazing. Maybe I am a shithead, right?
Not this week, but yeah.
Yeah, last week, maybe. So
2 days ago.
awesome. Yeah, awesome. Good stuff. How about you, Chris? I know I stole your thunder, but
You did. And then, I was just thinking, again, it's these stories of people. And, the questions I ask, we go back to their childhood and, what was some event or something that helped them become who they are. And sometimes that really opens it up a lot. And then just that process of transforming into who they've become and how they got there and who their mentors were. And they're just, I mean, I haven't gone through one that I haven't thoroughly enjoyed and learned something and wanted to apply it to my own life. And I've talked to people as young as just starting college, trying to get there as a high school or just starting college, to as old as, um, well, Joe Foster's pretty old. Lee
mhm.
Steinberg, some of these people who, they've just business for years. But there was no difference in which ones I enjoyed more than the other one. Uh, One that I thoroughly enjoyed recently is interviewing with Jason Pfeiffer, who's the editor in chief of entrepreneur.com. And it was interesting, one, because again, and I figured this out long ago when I first started doing these interviews. They are all the same person. They're just people, and I used to have this idea of how great they were because they've accomplished so much or they've done all these things. And I was reminded once again talking to Jason that nope, he's just a dude. He's got kids. He's got a family. Uh, his kids will come in and interrupt during some of his interviews, and he just goes with the flow of it. And the other part I really liked, in addition to learning, just reaffirming how human each of these people are, but was his process of how he got to be editor in chief. I was really interested in that. Because how do you start out and get to that place, knowing that the guy is early 40s, late 30s. He's young. He's got so much more to say. Well, what's coming next? But he just started out writing for a local paper, and then he moved to Boston and got on the writing team at a magazine there. And then from there, he just kept leveraging these. The next one was Men's Health, and then Fast Company, and now Entrepreneur, and there'll be more coming after this. He knows that. But just that process of stepping toward your success, not feeling I have to, graduate high school and go work for this great big magazine, working your way up to that, and how I saw that in my own life and how I saw that in really pretty much every other person's story that I interviewed as well. So, uh, yeah, I'd say that's one of my recent favorites, even though they've all been amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was just chatting back and forth with him today about pivot, and God, I asked him about, oh, that's what I asked him a question about what was his best piece of advice to connect with more influential people, right? And because I mean, clearly he speaks with influential people every single day, right? And it's not necessarily that I necessarily has to work for it, but I mean, not like we do.
Yep.
I mean, he's got the backing of Entrepreneur Magazine behind him, so that's pretty helpful. But but yeah, I mean, the one thing he kind of drilled home is go where the stories are. Why do you need influential people? Go where the stories are. That's really what people want to hear anyway. You know, it's nice to have these big, powerful people and so on and so forth. But and then he kind of just said, look at it this way. What does that even mean? What's a big, powerful person? Right? Which kind of lends back to what you said. At the end of the day, we're all just skin and bones, skin wrapped over bones, right? Um,
I
so
have a definition
yeah.
for power.
What's that?
Something that I've been exploring is if you think about like the most powerful being is a god, right? So
Hmm.
a god can just think and things will just happen. So the faster that you can go from thought to action, that's how powerful you are. That's how I internalize it.
There you go. That's a good look at you,
I
big.
like that.
Look at you, big brain.
Hey, conversations with people that got me to
Yeah, yeah.
this. So,
Well, here you go. Since you're talking,
Great segue.
your
You're next.
turn. You're next.
oh,
Three.
perfect. I think that was a great segue. So, I I got two. I got two that I want to say in their different ways. So this is the most influential person that I've had, which was 11 months ago, was Sean Cannell. He is the owner and CEO of Think Media. They have 2.87 million subscribers on YouTube. And I had the opportunity to connect with him because of being a host of the Moments with Food, right? The Strategic Advisor Board podcast. And I was invited to the 10X Growth Con as a judge, as a virtual judge, because of being a host of this podcast. And in there were like about like 100, a little bit over 100 other hosts that were there as virtual judges, and he was one of them. So he, as I did, I was messaging everybody, and he did too. And he's like, "Hey, nice connecting on this event." And I messaged him, "Hey, like, are you open to be a guest on my podcast?" And or just like I said, like to meet and explore possibilities. And typically, one of the great possibilities that I have for people to lead with value is to have them on my show, especially someone as big as him. And I made it basically my own consulting call. I started asking him questions for like about my clients and about stuff because I mean he was willing to give me the value. So after I made it about him and his stuff, then like I think I would say like the second half of the show is I made it a consulting call, and I was able to basically get a free consulting from somebody so big that people pay him so much money just because of this podcast. So that's why it was a great one. The clips of that, I did collaboration posts on Instagram with him, and it was great. They did very well. And the second one I want to say is the one that I did on a jacuzzi. I mean, I got somebody from Nashville that flew to Puerto Rico and then I took him to a jacuzzi, and we set it up with my tripod, my phone, a Yeti mic, and that's it. And we did it, and it was amazing. It was I was like, wow, I can't believe that I'm talking about business from a jacuzzi in Puerto Rico. And so that's why it was one of my favorite ones because I enjoyed it so much, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I've never interviewed anybody in a jacuzzi before. I'll have to put that on my bucket list now.
It was great. It was great. I'm like, I need to be doing this more often. I did one at the beach recently, but I did it in Spanish.
Yeah.
So that one it's not gonna go through this. But yeah, like I'm starting to do that. I mean, I'm beautiful Puerto Rico, so many beautiful places. Now with AI, even if you get picked up some sounds, I mean, in the original video in the beach, you can hear the waves, you can hear the wind. I put some enhanced audio with AI, and then it cuts all the noise, and I had a good podcast.
Yeah, I did one on an airplane one time. Yeah, the guy next to me he worked for Raytheon, I think. I think it was Raytheon. He was like the one of the vice presidents at Raytheon. And we got to chatting, and I just said, "Hey, do you want to be on a podcast?" And he was like, "Sure." And I just uh what do you call that little slot where the puke bag goes.
The
I
shelf,
just
it's like a little shelf.
I just stuck the phone in that thing and we just sat there and just chatted and I recorded the whole thing and turned it into a podcast. It was just kind of cool. So that was like I guess the most crazy place I've ever done one. And I mean the stewardess comes by and she's like or flight attendant, excuse me, came by and she was like, "You're on airplane mode, right?" I was like, "Yes." We're not doing it live. But yeah, so that was kind of fun. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I've loved hearing what everybody else has been saying. And what I do think is common for all of us, right, is the idea that all of our guests have been interesting. And so, it's each episode's been fun. Back to Joe Foster's comment about like, yeah, if you're having fun, then that's how your business is going to do well. And so I've had a number of great guests. Fu, you've been one of my excellent guests before, but I think one that sticks out to me is my mentor. Uh, when I got into the coaching world years ago, I went through a year-long course, probably top program in the country, and this gal Nina was my instructor, and she's instructed thousands of people. But her background is really interesting, I think, because she had been the director of marketing for Vail Resorts. So if you think about all the ski
Mm.
resorts around the world, she was the director of marketing for them. And she had that moment in life where she was like, there's got to be something more. And so she completely changed and got into coaching and becoming a business coach. And along the way, because she did well, she got hired by this company to teach people how to coach. And I think having her on my show was a highlight for me for the year because I think the world of her. I learned so much from her, and one of the things that really stuck out from training from her is something that I take every day and I work with my clients is how to make decisions. And it's funny because she was lamenting. She's like, "Man, I've taught so many people and they keep coming back to me after they've left the coaching world, training program, and they keep coming back and asking me for advice." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, duh, you're pretty savvy about it." And she's like, "Yeah, but you have to understand how off they are with their questions." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, they're all trying to start their own business." And so for anybody who's listening on this podcast, who has listened to our podcast, they are usually hungering for that tidbit of information, that nugget that will help them in their business. And those are great. But quite often the decision making process is what's lacking. And she's like,
Mhm.
they need to make their own decisions using what they've been taught. And there's three lenses to making a choice as a business owner. The first one is the logical, analytical. What's the market share right now? Is there an opening in that market? Can I bring my product to that market? How do I bring that to my market? Like there's that logical, analytical decision making of what's the best product I can bring to the right kind of market. But then the second lens is that emotional lens. Is there fear? Meaning, like, am I getting crushed by my competition? So I got to put something out there now so that I stop losing revenue? Or is it one of collaboration where, hey, I'm working with all of my division leaders and we are teaming together to come up with a really innovative product? And so there's an emotional uplift with something like that. So there's that logical, there's the emotional, and then there's that third one that I think we all have interviewed, that one person who seems to just intuit and just have a sixth sense about where to go. And that intuition piece is that third lens. And when we've got some emotional baggage going on, we got a crappy workforce, they're not responding, then we might get sucked into that drama and get emotionally bogged down and miss those instincts that we have in business. And it's those instincts, when we can catch those instincts, whether it's, you feel it in our gut or you just get that idea that comes out of the blue that's just an inspirational idea, that's that third lens. And so what Nina was telling me was, she's like, hey, all these people that are coming to me for help, they're so caught up in some fear about their business that they're missing their logic or they're missing their intuition. And so if they could just go back and remember what they were taught and just look at the decision-making process with those three lenses, they're going to make some really great choices because they're understanding why they're going into that new area and why they need to go into that new area. So I got that out of her podcast with me, and I thought it was just great to have her on my show. And so that was one of the highlights for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, you know what's funny? I mean, this just turned into a little mini masterclass.
Sure.
Kind of. It's kind of what it turned into all of a sudden.
I don't know what
Which
the
is
podcast is,
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is, right? Just got to get Oprah on.
Right.
This year.
Yeah, this year, right? Yeah, another one that actually thinking of it now is just not too long ago, and it was David Meltzer. He was in the New York Stock Exchange, and they were getting ready to ring the bell in the New York Stock Exchange. So that was really cool. And he's got probably one of the lose it all stories, lost $100 million and clawed his way back. I mean, he used to be Lee Steinberg's CEO for years. And just to listen to how he, I guess, not even how he dealt with it, but he just speaks about it now, like, whatever. So he's really obviously figured out how to compartmentalize that in his brain now, right? Now, I'm sure if you go back to the time, you might have got a different interview out of that, but the thing is he moved past it. And I think that's where a lot of people that do fail, they never move past the failure. That failure sticks in the brain for a long time. But anyway, yeah, it's been such a fun ride for the last 2 years doing this podcast. I've really enjoyed it. And again, thank all of you for continuing to make it great. And that's what matters. I mean, a lot of times we don't even realize the impact we're having until somebody comes up on the net and goes, which just happened not too long ago, and says, I've been listening to this podcast for over a year and it is part of my drive to work every day. That's an impact, right? And when you can have impact on people like that, that's, I don't know. I don't know what more you want. So, and they weren't even from the US. They were like from Germany or something. So, we just oftentimes we do these things and we take them for granted, right? Because it's just like we're doing the mechanical thing, right? It's like, oh, okay, I got to do another one. Got to do another one. Oh, Jesus, we're short this week. Got to do one more, right? So we think of things sometimes in those terms versus what is the impact that we're having out there to the people that are actually listening? And I will tell you, all of you are making a difference. So let's continue to make that difference for, I don't know, as long as I'm around, I guess. So, because I'm going to keep doing it no matter what.
Me too.
And it's a lot of fun. And I just want to be impactful to people. So anyway, that's my closing remark. Anybody else have anything else? No? Cool.
So I guess I can say, I can add I've been talking about this in the podcast, is it's a great way to network with authority. It's just like, what better than having somebody to, hey, like, let's talk about your story and the impact that you're having. We all, I think, are very big into having them to give advice to the audience, actionable tips, things that people can take away from it. So leading with that, and they give value, they share it through their network. So that's another way that we get in. So podcast, I tell everybody, it's the best way to network with authority.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, I think I said like 15 minutes and we've way blown by that. But that's kind of par for the course for me though. Pretty
It's
good
been
at
a
that.
fun ride. Let's stay in the top 1%.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Good
hey,
deal.
look,
Hey,
we've
let's push it.
we've been rewarded for that for a reason. So, there's no reason why we can't continue to push and push and push and keep the show going for sure. We're too far to not keep
To not
going
do
at this point.
Yeah.
So it's all good stuff. And again, thank all of you. Thank you to all of our listeners out there, our guests, mostly our listeners out there. We hope that you're always getting value from everything that we're doing. And thank you, because without your support, obviously, we just probably wouldn't be doing it. So that's a big part of it. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to, all the creators here. And, let's have another great year. Let's make sure we're back on year 3 at,
Keep her going.
let's see, we would be, if we stay on course, we'll be at, over 1,000 episodes next year. So that's pretty good stuff. Talk about content. What more do you want? All right, guys. Thank all of you and cheers.
Thank you.
Adios.
Jason.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.